Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. I'm here to talk about how to build an effective LiveOps strategy with PlayFab. So how many of you guys are game developers? Okay, so a couple. And so PlayFab is a product that Microsoft has that is focused on building games, basically a back-end platform for games. I'm CJ Williams. I'm a PM lead on the team, focusing primarily on monetization and analytics. So what I'll do is I'll take you through kind of what a LiveOps strategy is and how you can use PlayFab to build that effective LiveOps strategy. So, if you're in the game industry, I'm sure you're aware of kind of the big change that has happened over the past few years, right? Gaming is becoming increasingly a big part of the technology industry. It's about a $100 billion industry itself. There are about 2 billion players or gamers on the planet, and it's really worldwide phenomenon. Every part of the globe has significant amount of gamers on board, and each geography has kind of a unique flavor of gaming. And so that's, where we're at right now is basically the sea of change of how games are built from the traditional console, traditional box product games to ones that are live, particularly on mobile, but even ones like Fortnite that are spread across console, mobile, PC. They're all over the place. And so that's what we're seeing kind of overall in the game industry. And then when you look at it, what it takes to build an effective game is much different than what it was in the past. So in the past, much like software products 10, 20 years ago, you would build them, you would distribute them, and players would play them, and then you would go back to version 2, version 3, version 4, and so on. Today, the key is that you have to quickly iterate on your game. You have to launch quickly. You have to build new features. You have to understand what your players want, what they don't want, and focus on those things that are driving engagement, driving monetization of your players. And you do this by things like testing, deploying regularly, by doing quick iterative designs and development. And so at PlayFab, what we're focused on is basically the ability for you to focus on building your game, and we do all the hard stuff. And so our vision is that you make it fun, right? You make your game fun, and we'll make it run. We'll do all the hard things that it takes to run a game in today's environment, and you focus on making your game fun, engaging your gamers, and bringing them back over time. And so at Microsoft overall, we have a long history of gaming. We are actually, I think it was 1976 was the first game-related product that Microsoft produced, which is, you don't necessarily think of Microsoft as a gaming company, but it has a long history in gaming. And so lots of different things that we do, from Xbox Live. Of course, Windows is one of the biggest gaming platforms in the industry. And we have things like Havoc, DirectX, which are all very popular. But today I'll focus on PlayFab. And so what PlayFab has really focused on since its beginning is establishing what LiveOps is. And I'll go through some examples of why LiveOps is so important. So when you look at about 20 years ago almost, when you look at the top 10 grossing games 2 years in a row, what you see is basically very little carryover. And if you look in this case, The Sims dropped down. If you look at 2002, it drops down even further, and then by 2003, it's not even around. And so this is just, was fairly typical in this age about 20 years ago. But when you look at just a couple of years ago, it's very different, right? So, of course, this is 2016, 2017. But what you see is that there's a 70% carryover from one year to the next as far as the top 10 grossing games. And what you see in addition is that a lot of those actually go up higher the next year. So they're launched one year and they actually become more popular over time, which is part of the LiveOps strategy, right? This is how you make your game stay in the top 10, stay, not just steady state, but actually grow in popularity. And that's what all of these games have in common. They had a strategy of how they engage their players, how they get them to come back day after day after day playing the game, continuing to add new capabilities, add new fun, have events that bring people in, these kind of things. And you can also see it in this example of two specific games. So what you see is the one in purple was actually featured in a number of mobile stores all in one weekend. And so what you see is you have this big increase in engagement. And then what you see is this steady decline over time. And actually, all of those kind of bumps up are basically weekend play. So what you see is, a huge spike in popularity, and then just a constant shift. And the only increase that they have was on the weekend, essentially. The one in the orange, though, is a little bit different, because what they did is they launched their game very quickly. So it had only been in development for, I think, about 3 to 4 months when they first launched it in one of the smaller locales, I believe New Zealand, if I can remember correctly. And then what they did was they constantly iterated the game. And so what you see is this steady increase in the amount of users who were playing the game. And then by the time they actually launched worldwide, their game just continued to shoot up. And actually, if this game is one of the more popular games on mobile platforms today and has continued to increase. And so what they had from the very beginning that the game, the purple game didn't, was a LiveOps strategy. So they decided to release very quickly with the minimal set of features that they needed and get real customer feedback on what the players wanted to play, how they wanted to engage with the game, what was successful from an inventing strategy, how to bring people back on a regular basis. Whereas the purple game basically launched with its full feature set and had no plan in place on how they would iterate the game, how would they keep people playing it day after day after day. And that's the big difference between these two. So what I want to do, and I'll actually spend most of the session talking about this, but how does PlayFab enable LiveOps, and kind of what are the key LiveOps functions that we have? And so today, when you look at PlayFab, one of the big things that it is it's completely agnostic. So we support all major platforms. So of course, Android, iOS, Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, Windows. Basically, if there's a platform out there, we support it. The same with devices, same with gaming networks. So we support Xbox Live, PlayStation Network, Play Store, all the different networks, all the different social engines. We also support all the major game engines, Unreal, Unity, and then all the major app stores that we integrate natively with. And this is key because when you look at all the successful games today, they're actually, while they might launch on just 1 or 2 platforms, they expand over time. Almost every popular game now is trying to figure out how they can get onto as many platforms as they can, because for the most part, the devices are becoming very similar in the amount of capabilities that they have. And so what you can play on one game, what you can play on one type of device, you can play on a different type of device. And so this is one of the key things that we provide, is continuing to support any major platform, device, network that's out there. The other thing that we do is basically we enable you to either complement your existing infrastructure or adopt our entire platform. And so when we look at game industry, and particularly games that have an effective LiveOps strategy, there's a few key pieces that all of them have, right? So the first is that they have ways that they engage their users over time. And so this might be tournaments, this might be events, this might be prize tables, matchmaking, multiplayer are very popular. And this is what we call essentially the tournaments area. Then the next thing that they all have is they have a very clear focus on players and how they build a relationship with their players. And so this is everything from being able to authenticate your players, to be able to store custom data about your players, having very targeted segmentation so you know what your users' behaviors are and you can interact with them differently. You can message them very specifically, and then you can support them when they run into troubles. The next thing is commerce, and this is an area that's becoming even more popular now with things like virtual currency, in-app purchases, stores, promotions, how you get your players to come back over time, how you get them to build up essentially more impetus to come back to your game day after day. The next one is content. Being able to update your content dynamically, being able to customize it for the player, being able to change it over time, be able to message them in within the game, and then doing it all in an automated way. And then at the heart of all of this is real-time analytics. How do you know everything that's going on in your game? How do you know what players are doing? How do you know, what your game is doing, your game servers, your game services are doing, so that you can monitor and respond with no downtime, right? And not just your developers, but anyone in your game studio can go and understand what's happening within your game, what's happening within the ecosystem, and be able to react to it in real time. And that's one of the key things that PlayFab provides, is this real-time analytics tied to all of these other different pieces. And we'll go through a demo of PlayFab, and you can see it in action here in just a few minutes. The kind of going a little bit deeper into this notion of real-time analytics, when we talk about real-time analytics, there's quite a bit that goes into it. So when you look at on the data side of things, what we want to be able to do is collect everything that's going on within your game. So things like game events, what's a player doing? Are they moving from level to level? Did they just make a purchase? Did they just kill a boss? Did they just complete a level? Did they, go to a store? All of these kind of things. You want to see these happening in real time and being able to do things about it. The next one is API calls. What is your game? How is it interacting with your back-end services? How is it interacting with PlayFab? And then also your service-to-service calls, right? And so all of this is being logged through a product that we have called PlayStream, which I'll show in just a second. But basically, it's a real-time processing engine where you can take actions on any of those events. And these events that we're talking about can be used by anyone within the studio, right? So they can be used by artists to understand the flow of players within the game so that they can create new levels. The same with game designers. With data scientists, they can understand what your player behavior is. They can build models around churn or cheat detection or anything that's critical for your game. And then, of course, engineers and producers can use this data to understand how the game is performing. And then on the business side, you have business analysts, you have kind of your executives, you have your marketers. Basically, anyone can use this data. And what we've done is we've tied it to a set of real-time actions that you can take and data that you can then go and analyze. And these real-time actions, as I said, are connected to all the different core game services that we provide, but also in a way that you can, if you have your own set of game services, you can interact with these rules yourself. So the things that you can do are real-time rules, and we'll go through a few of these. But one example could be you have a player who just killed a boss, and you want to congratulate him or give him a medal or do something special because it's a unique boss, and you can have that triggered in near real time. So as soon as they have killed the boss or completed the level, they get a notification right away, and you can say, congratulations. Or if they moved up in a new level and experience points, you don't have to wait any time. You can, congratulate them or do something unique for them right in real time. The other thing is all of this data is backed by a data warehouse where you can go and analyze the data after the fact. So as I said, you can build models like churn models, be able to understand what users are likely to churn out, understand what might make them retain, and build a strategy on keeping more of your players. Another one that we have, which is a kind of a powerful scripting language, is called CloudScript. And so all of this data is available with CloudScript, which is basically game logic running within the cloud. And so this CloudScript can dynamically change based off of what's going on within the game. And then, as I mentioned, all of this data is available to your own custom backends if you want to integrate with it. So it's all based off of APIs, and you can get the same data that we're doing or that we're using in the same round trip of about 1 second. So this is 1 second from event firing within the game, PlayFab being able to understand that event and then take whatever action that you want within the game. As I said, we'll look through this in more details. But this is a powerful concept of being able to adapt and customize the game specifically for your player, right? You can go all the way down to a specific player and customize it just for them. And so now I'll switch over and we'll go through a demo of PlayFab. I can get this going here. And so what we'll see is we'll see a game sample game that we have called Unicorn Battle. As you'll see, this isn't necessarily the most popular game on the Android store, but we have a few players playing it, primarily myself today. We are not, we build back-end services. We don't necessarily build games, as you'll see, but this is basically what we call the game manager. And so you can think of this as the central hub of LiveOps. So how do you interact with your player? How do you know what's going on within the game? And so when you come here, what you see kind of first of all is a set of core things about your game. So things like unique users, API calls. If you use CloudScript, you see your CloudScript processing time. You see, things like how many users are logging in, what's the change today, 7 days ago. You can see how many new users. As you can see, again, this isn't a very popular game, but it is actually going down in popularity over time. And then you can see reports. So you can see things like ARPU, ARPU-poo, everything about your business that you want to see. And then, as I mentioned, at the heart of all of this is PlayStream. And so what you have with PlayStream is a real-time monitor of what's going on. And so what you can see here is that as I log into the game, I start to get more things happening in the PlayStream. Let me play around. So what you start seeing is a whole bunch of different things that start happening. So you see, my virtual currency balance change. You see an item was added to my inventory. You see statistics change. You see a whole bunch of things that are happening in near real time with this. And then what I want to do is now focus in on, me as a player. And so I can go in here. I can go and see all my different players. And what I can see is, just basic information about myself, my contact email. But what I want to go in and look at is something, in this case, statistics. And I'll focus in on this one particular one, which is total XP gained. And so you see here I have 3,619 XP points. I'm going to go in and change this right now to just under 3,000. And the reason why I'm doing that is one of the things, as I mentioned, you can build segmentation off of your players. And so I have this particular segment called high XP players, and it's anyone with more than 3,000 experience points. And if we go in here, what we can do is we can look at this and we can see that how I have this set up is, basically it's any time that anyone goes over this 3,000 experience points, I do a set of things, right? So I send a push notification to them. I send them a message. As you can see, you can personalize this message with their display name. And then I also grant them a virtual currency. And then you can do a lot more complex things here, but this just basically shows you that you can set up these segments for any different type of reason. And, as you can come back and see here, we have things like foul-mouthed players. And so we've integrated with a third party here, and basically we look at any chat or text messages players are sending. We see if they're, are saying a set of bad words, and if it goes over a threshold of saying bad words, we can send them a notification, or we can ban them from playing multiplayer, or we can restrict them so that they only can play with people of a certain age or higher. So these are lots of different ways that you might use segments. But now, going back to players and going back to myself, so now I'm under this threshold, so I'm no longer a high experience point player, and I can come in and see that here. Sorry, actually, let's go to PlayStream. So here is my kind of personalized PlayStream event. And what we'll see here is a number of things that happen. And so, as you recall, the type of things that were supposed to happen is I get a virtual currency added, I get this message that says I'm a high value or a high experience player. And so I can come in here, as you see, I'm going to play another round. This is a very exciting game. And so here, basically how the code is written is as soon as I hit the continue button, all of this data is pushed up. So, the fact that I defeated 7 enemies, that I freed so many unicorns, and then I gained a certain amount of experience points. And so what we can see is that as soon as I push this, all of this is happening. And I've actually gotten this, personalized message saying that I'm now one of the top players within the game. And so this is, hopefully you can start to see the power of PlayStream and be able to tie it to all the different actions that you have. Another thing that I'll show kind of in this regard, I'll go back to statistics and again change my experience point to a little bit lower. We have, as I mentioned, in-app purchases. And so in here you can come in, you can customize your catalogs, your stores, and these kind of things. And we'll go look at one particular store here, which is this gem store. And so how it's set up is you have a set of gems, it has a description, it has a store name. But then what you see is that, this was the wrong one. I'm supposed to go to gem store, not gem store MN. So, sorry, gem store. And what you see down here is that, anytime a player goes into this segment of high value players, I can actually send them now not to this store, but to another store. And this is all done without any code change within the app itself. Right? And so this is a very powerful way where you don't have to have developers go in and customize something for your players. You can have one of your producers, you can have one of your marketing folks come in and actually do this and change it over time. So what you'll see is we'll go into the store, and you see here we have a rule set up that the first time you visit a store, you get 5 gems. So now we're here at the launch party. Then what I'll go into the store. Clicking is not always working here. Where did my store go? It keeps giving me gems. End up with lots of different gems. There it is. Sorry, gem store. So here I go to the gem store, and it says gem store, so we're in the gem store. But then what we can do is we can come back here. I can play another round. I'll become a high XP player again. And now all of a sudden, when I come back to the gem store, it's now changed the different prices because I'm now an elite player or a high XP player. So these are the kind of things that you can do with PlayStream and with PlayFab. I want to walk through a couple other different pieces of functionality as well here as we go through. One of the big things, as I mentioned, is around telemetry and analytics. And so within PlayFab, we basically provide you with a bunch of your core performance indicators. So things like MAU, monthly active users, your DAO, daily active users, your new players, another one which is average screen time. And so you can start saying your session length. So all of these are key things to understand what your player behavior is. You can see retention. You can see all of these around 7 or 30-day trends. So what are your trends over time? We actually just announced a couple weeks ago a new feature here, which is called benchmarks. And so not only can you see your own data, but you can actually see how you compare against the industry for things like retention. So, is your retention higher or lower than the industry? And we actually go all the way down to genre level. So if you tell us things about your game, like what genre, what platforms it's on, we can actually tell you, how you compare against that particular segment of games, and so you can know, roughly how well you're doing. So these are the kind of statistics that you can see about your players. We also enable things like webhooks, and so webhooks is one of the primary ways that if you want to integrate with PlayStream, you can have it send data to wherever you want, any web API that you want, and you can get this data in near real time, just like you get with PlayStream. And then we're just in preview with a new feature called the data warehouse, and so this provides you direct access to your data, to all your data that you have within PlayStream, within PlayFab, and you can actually bring in data from other data sources and then tie all of this back to actions within the game. So you can bring in things like Zendesk, if you use Zendesk for basically support, you can tie that to the user and actually now know within PlayFab, how many support tickets does a user have open, and you can understand, if they're high value player or not, that you might treat them a particular way, or you might send them a message or a discount if something hadn't been going right. And so this provides you a lot of ability to go in, analyze the data, and then take direct actions on that data. A couple other things that I'll mention here as well is a feature called scheduled task. And so in scheduled task, basically what this allows you to do is you can set up a set of actions that you want to have taken. And so here you want to give someone a gift for playing or for being a high value gamer. You want to grant them an item. And here what you can do is you can, I'll save it and run it. And then now as a high XP player, you have all of your players, your high XP players, go and get these things. And you can set them up as regular tasks or just manual tasks that you run one at a time. And this allows you, again, to engage your user in different ways through messaging. So here you see I just got a gift from Unicorn Battle because I'm in that high XP player bucket. And then another thing that we have as well is leaderboards. And so leaderboards is, again, kind of a core piece of functionality, again, tied to PlayFab or PlayStream, where you can set leaderboards for different types of reasons. So here you can set, boss killed or damage done, and then you can see who's at the top of the list. As we can see, I'm number 7 here, so it looks like I need to play more often. But you can come in here and you can use this for many different things, right? You can just have a leaderboard within your game, but you can also take actions or give prizes for these. So we also have prize tables where if you're in the top 10, you can get different things for it kind of automatically. And then you can have seasons, so you can reset this leaderboard. So you can have season 1, season 2, season 3, or you can have leaderboards that are essentially live to date. So these are the kind of things that you can do with PlayFab. So now I'll switch over and I'll talk a little bit about what we have coming up over the next few months. So the first big thing that we launched is called multiplayer servers. And so this is the next generation of our multiplayer servers in the cloud. And basically, this is the same back-end engine that Microsoft first-party games and a number of third-party games have been using for a while. And this, scales to millions of users. We actually use an AI-driven predictive scaling mechanism for you. It's fully integrated into PlayFab. And one of the big things that we're doing is we're bringing this to China in the next few months. And so now, as I mentioned, you'll be able to use PlayFab all over the world, not just in particular locales, but anywhere in the world that you want to have your game launched. The next one is bringing matchmaking. So Xbox Live has a very sophisticated smart match technology. It had been traditionally locked to just the Xbox Live platform. But what we're doing, we're just about to announce the public preview of this, is we're bringing that Xbox Live Smart Match out to all of PlayFab developers on any platform that they want to use it on. The focus is on being able to quickly find and join matches that are designed for you. And so we understand the skill of a player. We understand, how likely a mix of players are to have a high quality session, and we can join them very quickly and find those players and allow them to have the, best multiplayer experience that they can have. The other one is, and I mentioned this a little bit, but is economy at scale. And so we have essentially a fairly robust in-app purchase platform, but we're looking at basically being able to provide or be able to support a wider range of game types with much larger inventories, things like entities, which is a new programming model that we're working through. And then also one of the big things that we're looking at later early next calendar year is building a platform for user-generated content. And so your game can have a platform for users being able to generate their own content. And then the last thing that I mentioned is the data warehouse. And so the data warehouse is essentially a fast, massively scaled platform that allows for things like high throughput custom events. And so we'll be rolling out support later this year for telemetry events up to hundreds of events per client or per gamer. It's natively integrated with PlayFab, and it's powered by a new technology called the Azure Data Explorer. And one of the big things in this area is GDPR compliance. So thank you. Before we start questions, just to remind you to, if you want to rate the sessions, you have an opportunity to win prizes, so don't forget to do that. But happy to take any questions you have now. Okay. I'll be here afterwards as well if you have any questions you want to ask me after. So thanks a lot.